1. I dragged my suitcase through the entrance to Summer Island, and everyone around me was staring. I pretended not to notice, swiped my card, and walked in. Behind me, whispers started up. That guy, skin's so pale, legs are straight, definitely an omega. How the hell is an omega this obvious? I struggled a bit lifting the suitcase, trying to head straight for the stairs. Of course, it was way too heavy to carry. A pair of long, knuckled hands reached out from beside me. Low and cool voice cut through the air. Let me take that. I looked up and locked eyes with a calm pair of dark ones. He was tall, which came with this heavy kind of presence, the unmistakable weight of an alpha. I let go of the suitcase and stepped back without a word. He picked it up easily, then casually asked, "You here for the first time too?" I nodded. Just arrived, carrying my deadweight suitcase like it was nothing. He walked me straight to my dorm door. As he left, he gave a slight nod. "Henry, call me if you need anything." I nodded back lightly, twisted the handle, and stepped inside, feeling that hot gaze burn right into my neck. Sticky, dominant, and just a hint of hunger. That's just how alphas are, and it's something I'll have to get used to over the next month. 2. I gently shut the dorm door behind me, then took a slow look around the room. This so-called dorm. A young man sat cross-legged on the edge of his bed, a black satin mask covering his eyes, leaving only his sharp nose and refined jawline visible. Probably disturbed by the click of the door, he frowned slightly, his brows knitting together. "Who?" I set my luggage carefully against the wall and said softly, "Hi." My voice was soft, like a feather brushing his ear, light but deliberate. He froze for a second, then reached up with long, pale fingers and yanked the mask down in one swift motion. I caught sight of his eyes, golden, almost glowing, that shade of gold. Only top-tier alphas from the Federation had it. Few people were born with that kind of gaze. Honestly, pretending to be an alpha isn't as easy as it looks. The Federation's gender ratio was off, alpheas were rare, omegas even rarer. Most alphas had some telltale sign, something in their appearance, or their scent, something that set them apart from ordinary people. Thinking this, I let my smile deepen just a little more, voice dropping even softer. "Hi there, I'm James." He stared at me, unwavering, for a long beat, then glanced away quickly, a faint flush creeping across his pale face. "Lucas, funny," I said, tilting my head slightly. "Our names kind of sound alike." I set my bag down, then slowly edged closer to the bed, like a trespasser stepping into a wild beast's territory. "If you're taking the second bunk, can I have the third?" The two bunks were pressed right up against each other. Reality TV always crams the beds close for drama's sake. A narrow gap, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Roll over in your sleep, and you might end up right in someone else's arms. Lucas tightened his lips, his face turning redder, but he didn't say no. Just then, the door creaked open again. In stepped a strikingly beautiful man, chestnut curls tumbling over his shoulders, dreamy hazel eyes and a single teardrop-shaped beauty mark beneath one eye, draped in a sleek trench coat with effortless flair. Nobody would ever mistake him for an omega. First, his towering height, over 6 feet tall and radiating presence. Then the wave of dominant pheromones rolling off him like a storm front. Thick, intoxicating scent, like wild roses at dusk, bold and unapologetically heady. His eyes locked onto mine and lit up instantly. Didn't expect to find a little cutie here. Without hesitation, he slid right in beside me, shoving Lucas aside with practiced ease. "Baby, you're sleeping with me tonight." The words came low and teasing, brushed against my ear like a whisper of perfume on the breeze. I glanced over at Lucas. Sure. 3. The first day of the variety show taping, the foursome dorm wasn't fully occupied yet. The director explained with a smirk. "One more aristocrat's still being fussy. His stuff hasn't arrived, so he refuses to move in." I chuckled, not saying much. Alphas always dominate the top tiers of every industry, either filthy rich or born into privilege. And due to physiological aversion, they rarely end up in the same place at once. Getting so many high-quality alphas together for this show was no small feat. Rumor has it the director burned through all his contacts and even sacrificed some face to pull it off. The biggest draw of the whole thing, that one omega in the mix, Thinking about that, the director's gaze softened toward me. James, how's your first day going? I gave a quiet laugh. Everyone seems pretty friendly. He nodded approvingly. Friendly's good. Friendly's great. Then he scowled, studying me again. Still, you're dressed way too omega. I glanced down at my outfit. Honestly, just a plain t-shirt and shorts, nothing special. The director gave me one of those knowing looks. Just don't forget your endgame. I smiled into the night wind. Don't worry, I haven't. After giving me a final nod, he said, I've always trusted you, but better safe than sorry. Heard your heat cycle's coming up. Want me to have my assistant send over some suppressants? I replied smoothly, sure, thanks. Only once his figure disappeared down the hall did I let out a quiet scoff. Truth was, I didn't have a heat cycle at all. Betas don't go into heat. Back in my dorm, the director's words echoed in my head. If this t-shirt's too eye-catching, I'll just have to swap it out for something else. I didn't pack much, but I still had one loose button-up shirt left. The room was empty, so I stripped off the t-shirt right there. Then, a sharp knock rattled the door. I froze for half a second before someone just shoved the door open without waiting. What's going on during daylight? His voice cut off mid-sentence. I calmly slipped on the shirt, but the cool-looking guy in sunglasses, he wasn't so calm anymore. He wiped a sudden nosebleed with one swipe and stepped forward, demanding, why were you changing clothes in here? I raised an eyebrow. Where else would I change? Not outside, surely. The dorm had a private bathroom, but the pheromone processor was running full blast inside. Anyone with half a brain knew better than to barge in. He stammered, then just, shut up. I fastened my shirt buttons and still flashed him a smile, reaching out my hand. Hi, I'm James. William shifted uncomfortably, offering his hand, his ears and neck flushed red. William, hearing that name, my smile flickered for just a second, but I covered it up in an instant. I rolled up the sleeves of my shirt, and the pale wrists I revealed made William feel a bit uneasy. Smiling at him, I asked, tomorrow's the first audition stage, are you nervous? William rubbed his nose. What would I be nervous about? We're not here to debut, but rather, he caught himself mid-sentence and cut off abruptly. I glanced at the camera, partially blocked from view, then tilted my eyes up in a quiet smile. No big deal, everyone knows what's really going on. We're here just to find the Omega. Omega, the Empire's jewel. The one every alpha spends a lifetime chasing with obsession. Most alphas on the show come with hearts in their eyes, not really caring about making it to the top, no matter if they end up first or last. All that matters is who can sniff out the one and only Omega from the 30 contestants. Only that person wins. And on my first day at Summer Island, wandering half the place, I'd already drawn attention like a magnet. Eyes that were sharp with hunger, low and watchful, had been waiting in the shadows all along. All it took was the right moment. Then they'd pounce on me without mercy. But, back in the dorm, my fingers brushed against the young man's sleeve, just barely. The carefully sprayed pheromone perfume kicked in right on time. William's eyes began to turn red on their own. His alpha beast surged to the surface, veins standing out, breath hitching as he leaned forward, sniffing at that faint trail of scent. I tilted my lips up into a smirk, slammed the dorm door shut, and locked him out. My mind sneered, another one who can't keep it in his pants. Total trash. 5. The next day, the casting show officially kicked off. As per TV tradition, the first episode would assign teams based on talent showcases. The lights were set, and hovering cameras from every direction whirred to life. The audience had already timed their entrance perfectly, crushing in like a wave. I want to see hot guys. I want to see hot guys. Oh my god, there are so many hunkadoodles here. A glittering sea of alpha men. Cool, radiant, bold, elegant. All leaning on the central reef of Summer Island, smiling at the cameras. Flashbulbs popped, catching glimmers in their detached expressions. The camera's flash went off rapidly, glinting in their nonchalant eyes, casual on the surface, but every one of them was already primed, waiting to snag an Omega. Today marked day one of the casting. After the initial appearance and class division, the process of the talent show will officially begin, which also means the real hunt for Omegas begins. I keep my eyes lowered, deliberately avoiding the camera's gaze. Meanwhile, the host continues shouting out the show's flow with zero pause. Our summer chase ascent like other editions. Sure, we've got that first stage performance. But it's not just about showing off talent. It's actually testing pheromone purity and scent profile. The moment the words hit, the whole room erupts. Alphas all lock their eyes on the row of tiny test vials, subtly adjusting their stances at once. If physical appearance is the first thing judges look at to judge an alpha's worth, then pheromones are definitely the deciding factor. No matter how fierce or rugged a male might look, if his pheromone is weak and low in purity, he'll be written off as unworthy by any omega, bottom of the list. So alphas take this stuff seriously. It's a battle they can't afford to lose. Contestants go up one by one, according to the draw, releasing their pheromones. Henry's scent was a deep, woody aroma, high purity, instantly making the alphas nearby tense up. He smirks, glancing back at me. Just then, Lucas stepped forward, blocking his gaze from me. A crisp, sharp scent of snow and ice flooded the air. His pheromones cut through like a blade drawn from an ancient tang sword. Timeless, deep and powerful. Then came the stunning Benjamin, wearing a trench coat. His smirk was smooth, but hollow, cold at the core. The scent of roses had been overwhelming since the first moment. Bold, dominant, pushing into every breath like an uninvited guest. Then there was William. His pheromones were unique. Sunlight distilled into scent. Pure, almost saturated to the max. Alpha signatures varied wildly, but on the test strip, all of them burned hot and intense. After all, these were the top-tier alphas director had handpicked. Each one, no matter how subtle, carried a spark of something special, until only two remained, me and the last test. Their gazes locked onto me like predators circling prey, heavy, hungry, like they were waiting for a signal. I stepped forward and released just a whisper of my own pheromones into the strip. The reading flashed back instantly. A number lit up, 1%. That's it, 0.1%. The live feed erupted. Omega! Omega! It's finally clear now. No way. My flawless, gorgeous wife is totally clueless. Just exposed herself right in front of everyone like that. Heartbreaking. Why was I the only one not there when it happened? The air around me shifted instantly. People's gazes grew heavy. Tense, competitive energy crackled in the silence. The pheromone scanner buzzed once, then went dead. Massive alpha signals collided, clashing and repelling like forces at war. I lowered my eyes slightly, meeting the director's stunned stare. He clearly hadn't expected me to reveal my identity on day one. But this whole segment was actually just sprung last night. One of the 30 contestants had suggested it. I glanced back at the group. No one gave anything away. The host stepped in fast, trying to regain control. Our system sorts you by pheromone purity. So now, James is the only one left in Group F. Everyone back to your assigned groups. Now. Split up, he spoke with sharp authority as the director handed out assignment cards. I got the only F card. As I walked toward Group F, I caught a glance from someone in the crowd heading to someone staring straight at me. His eyes were deep and dark, like a volcano about to erupt. Felt like he was whispering, "I found you." 6. The director pulled me aside for a talk. He said with concern, "James, you've already revealed your identity on the first day. How can we manage for the remaining month?" I just smiled. "Director, don't sweat it, I've got a backup plan. This whole situation." Exactly what I expected. Honestly, my looks scream Omega, way too obvious for anyone with eyes. Anyone halfway sharp could tell right away I'm not a typical alpha, which is why I came prepared. I'll prove it all tomorrow during the date session. Summer Chase isn't like other shows. It's a mix of everything. Dating, talent hunt, even a full-blown werewolf game. The date events, that's where it really steals the best bits from real dating apps. Contestants get randomly paired and sent to different spots on the island. Just hang out, talk, play games, get to know each other properly. Seeing me so calm, the director relaxed a little. He gave my shoulder a quick pat. "Keep an eye on tonight's crush message." I nodded. The crush text is another classic dating show staple. An anonymous note sent to someone you're into. Just a little test of feelings. When night fell, I sat back in my chair. The phone the crew gave me lit up with half a dozen messages all at once. "Are you an Omega? Nice to meet you. Can we hang out tomorrow? When did you finally leave the lab?" Amidst the flirty and friendly texts, one stood out like a sore thumb. I stared at it for a long time. then I swiped it straight into the trash. The dorm was already dark, lights out early, just the glow of my phone casting shadows on my face in the blackness. I picked a lazy reply and sent it off. Glad to meet you, Alpha. The silence of the dorm suddenly spiked with sharp breathing. Someone was there, but in the dark, I couldn't tell who it was. I tucked my phone away and closed my eyes. Midway through the night, I felt a light touch on my forehead, so gentle, like someone handling something priceless. I still shut. I waited to see what came next, but he didn't move, just pulled back slowly. On the third day, I woke up early, 7. On the third day, I got up really early. I fixed my hair, and I even went out of my way to borrow some perfume from Benjamin and sprayed it on myself. He smirked, half a smile, half a question. Who are you trying to impress? This fancy routine? I said, date. Of course I'm putting in the effort. Then, pretending it was nothing, I added, last night I swear I had that ghost on the chest thing. Felt like something brushed my head. Lucas, who was washing up, lost his grip on the cup, and it clattered to the floor. When he picked it up, the skin behind his ear had already turned bright red. Benjamin glanced at us, seeming to catch on, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I asked him, where's William? Oh, him. Benjamin didn't seem to care about the other roommates. He left early. He probably went for a morning workout, morning run. The rich kid actually does that. I glanced outside and just happened to see William pushing the door open. He wasn't dressed for much, just a thin layer, and sweat glistened on his forehead, his face flushed from exertion, raw youth and something electric radiating off him. I tilted my eyes up, giving him a little wave. Good morning, William. The way I said it, too close, too soft, had the other two in the room freezing mid-breath. William had been holding onto his proud young master demeanor, but now he was slowly turning red. He nodded at me. Good morning, James. The last two words came out so quiet they were nearly lost. I nodded back and stepped through the door, left behind a silence thick enough to choke on. Outside, the director had been waiting, slipped me a card without missing a beat. Beach. He waved at me, mouthing, make the most of it. I knew exactly what he wanted me to show. One way the Empire distinguishes alphas from omegas is how long they can stay underwater. Alphas have better stamina, stronger lungs, and usually hold their breath for ages. Omegas are naturally fragile. Many don't even develop fully functional lungs, so staying under is a real challenge. Betas sit in the middle, average across the board. But if you can beat a certain time underwater, it's like night and day compared to omegas. By the time we reached the beach, there were already plenty of competitors gathered. Some were riding jet skis, others shredding waves on surfboards. Seeing me, they laughed and said, James, you also drew the beach location. Wanna swim? I'll go with you. Nah, let's hit the surf. I'm killer on a board. Ever tried diving deep? The guy who said it got the cold shoulder from everyone around him. Seriously, bring up the worst topic. You know perfectly well no one's supposed to go under. Right after that, someone stepped in close, trying to nudge their way into my space. Come on, James. Let's not play those hard games. We're going swimming. No. I smirked and shook my head. I want to try the dive. Everyone froze, then stared at each other in stunned silence. You dive down? Deep beneath the surface, the ocean floor stretched out in shadow. Fish darted past my fingers, strange creatures glowing faintly in the dark. I counted the seconds as I stayed down below. The view here was one I'd seen 1,000 times before. I vaguely remember the day I told Lucas years ago that I wanted to practice diving. He'd stared at me like I'd lost my mind, but I insisted I wanted to get strong, just like an alpha. He said nothing after that. From then on, I'd stay in the water while he stayed on land. He always checked on me, pulled me up countless times when I passed out from exhaustion. And now, I could finally dive deep for over 10 minutes just like an alpha, but he wasn't there to see it anymore. I pulled my gaze away, glancing toward the hidden corner to make sure everything was clear. Then I began to rise. On the shore, the alpha with the stopwatch stood frozen, stone still. You? His eyes ran over my slender legs and pale, glowing chest, disbelief written all over his face. Aren't you an omega? I'm not. I took the towel and dabbed at my damp hair, a faint smile playing on my lips as I turned to look at him. Who even told you I'm an omega? I'm a beta. his expression tightened, his breath hitching slightly, but he didn't catch any of that familiar omega scent on me. Frustration crept across his face, then instantly distance snapped between us. If you're not an omega, why pretend? Around me, the other alphas who'd been hovering just out of reach now drifted away too. They scattered in small clusters, muttering to one another, their glances at me cold and sharp, no longer warm or tender like before. My expression cooled just a little, without showing it. Then someone stepped in front of me. They were discussing things in small groups, their expressions toward me filled with disgust, no longer showing the tenderness they had before. He glared at the fickle alphas with those molten gold eyes, icy and unyielding. Without a word, he draped his jacket over my shoulders and handed me a steaming cup of coffee. I took it surprised, staring at him. "Why are you still near me?" He gave me a look and asked back, "So what if you're not an omega? That mean I can't be close to you?" I laughed. "Yeah, alphas can have friendship too." "No," Lucas said quietly. "It's about the friendship between you and me." I was surprised he'd actually say that out loud. Then again, given his cold, reclusive ways, now it made sense. I downed the rest of my coffee in one go, finally feeling something real. "Thanks." He watched me finish, a faint smile tugging at his otherwise ice-cold face. "Don't mention it." As we stepped away from the shoreline, the director grabbed my arm, stunned, pointing at the latest ratings chart. "James, our viewership has jumped by several points. Everyone's obsessed with guessing your real identity." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Keep it up just like this. That's what makes our show worth watching." After he'd walked off, satisfied, I turned to look beside me, and suddenly locked eyes with a pair of almond-shaped ones. Benjamin stepped out from the shadows of the pillar, having been listening for who knows how long. He stared straight at me, then let out a quiet laugh, sliding a cigarette to his lips with slender, pale fingers. Smoke curled upward as he said, "Deadpan, you're an omega." I said, "What if I'm not?" Benjamin narrowed his eyes. His almond-shaped eyes became slender, and a hint of guile and calculation flashed across them. "I've seen you before. Number 1, in the Faye family's lab." Night fell, and the crew set up a massive bonfire on the beach. I sat by the bonfire, firelight dancing across my face. Henry noticed my pale expression and handed me a skewer of grilled food. "You seem kinda down." "Am I?" I took the skewer, brushing my fingers over my cheek. No need to look. I knew my face was pale as ever. Cold hands, tight knot in my chest. I never expected to run into Benjamin here. His casual remark earlier had sent me spiraling. I'm usually careful, always think things through. Now, with a variable in the plan, I was off kilter, but I never took off my mask. I smiled at Henry. "Thank you." I could see he was about to say something more, trying to pester me, and a wave of annoyance welled up inside me. Henry hadn't been assigned to the coast, so he didn't know about the dive yet. Not sure why. Suddenly, I just wanted off the stage, wanted to peel off the mask and vanish somewhere quiet. I stood up, gave him a nod, then walked away into the dark. The sea wind swept through me, scattering thoughts like ash. I followed the shore at a slow pace until I reached a spot with no one around. Leaning against the rocks, I stared out at the rippling water and let out a quiet sigh. My mind felt scattered, heavy with exhaustion. Then someone unexpected showed up, someone I hadn't counted on. I wasn't sure whether to keep going or not. Just as I was caught in that moment, a soft voice came from beside me. "You okay?" I froze, turning to see a figure carefully emerging from behind the rock. Lucas. His golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark, and he repeated it quietly. "You okay?" I said, "Not really." Lucas carefully checked my expression, then quickly pressed the back of his hand against my forehead. "You're running a fever," he stated flatly. I was surprised by how sharp he'd been, but Lucas spoke up. "Actually, I've always wanted to ask you why you're here. We're all chasing Omega, but my gut tells me your reason isn't that." I said, "Have you seen Omega?" Lucas shook his head. No. I tilted my face up toward the sky, eyes full of stars. "I came to Summer Isle because someone once really wanted to see it." "Who?" "My brother and Omega. He didn't make it." Lucas was stunned. I could see he was about to press further, so I stood up and brushed the sand off my hands. "All right, that's enough questions." I walked a long way before stopping. Then I touched my face. My fingers came away wet with tears. I saw someone playing the violin under the moonlight. William's tall figure looked incredibly tender under the moonlight. The violin's melody drifted through the air, tugging at my thoughts. He always seemed like just another spoiled playboy. Never thought he'd be this good. William kept playing, then stepped sideways and suddenly spotted me. His expression had been so serious while playing. But the moment he saw me, he flinched. The sea breeze stirred our hair as I clutched my chest and said to him, "I'm not feeling too great." He dropped the violin right then and rushed over. I gasped for air, my heart hammering like a drum. A jolt of electricity shot through me. I knew what it was, that old surgery's aftereffects. It reminded me of everything I'd been through before. William stared at me, worry in his eyes, almost reaching to start CPR. But I stopped him. I pointed to my jacket pocket. "There's medicine inside." He grabbed the bottle fast, shook out 2 pills and shoved them into my mouth. Then he stared at me, frowning. "If you're not feeling right, just leave. What's the point of doing this damn audition?" I felt a little better, pressing my hand over my chest and breathing shallowly. "Can't quit, it'd mean no money." William blurted out, "I'll support you." Then he caught my teasing look and nearly choked on his own words. After taking the pills, my heart finally stopped aching so bad. But a strange sensation prickled at the back of my neck. Warm, almost burning. Then William's eyes snapped to the spot behind me. He inhaled sharply through his nose, sniffing the air. And then his pupils went golden, uncontrollably. "James, you're an Omega? 10. A wave of unbearable heat crashed over me. William was wrong. I'm not an Omega, but he was right too. I've been one once. A stripped-down Omega. Glands removed, pheromones erased. By society's rules, I'm no different from a beta now. When the director found me, I wasn't afraid at all. In fact, I was playing those alpha men like puppets on a string. But I never saw this coming. The emergency medication in my pocket had a side effect. False heat. It woke up the Omega beneath me, ripping through the beta facade I'd built. Right then, the spot on my neck where my gland should have been was pulsing with heat. I bit down hard on my lip to keep from giving in. William's gaze was still lingering on his reddened neck. He looked like a fool, his gaze and teeth betraying him, yet he kept scanning me, asking, "James, are you an Omega?" As if he wouldn't act until I answered. I couldn't help but laugh. Who knew in this day and age there were still guys like that? I dug my nails into my palm, fighting to stay sharp for a second. Then I tilted my head back and gave him a dazzling smile. "Nah," I said, voice soft. "I'm just a beta. Didn't you hear?" I said softly, "William, the pill you just fed me was an Omega pheromone booster. You really didn't notice? I was flirting with you the whole time?" William's face flushed bright red in an instant. He stared at me, almost tripping over his tongue. "Why you?" I didn't wait for him to recover. I struck the moment he was off guard. Even the strongest alphas got weaknesses when they're not themselves. He was weak as a rag, so I dragged him behind some rocks just to hide the mess, then staggered away. I'd scouted this island months ago and marked safe spots in the jungle, just in case something like this happened. But I didn't expect those 2 pills would hit me so hard. I'd barely taken a few steps when everything blurred into white noise. My breath burned hot, and the back of my neck itched like fire. I let go of my bitten lower lip, stumbled, fell hard, and couldn't get up again. Then, through tear-fogged eyes, a shadow moved toward me. The scent of roses crashed over me like a wave, flooding into the bare space at my neck. I heard him sigh. Then he lifted me up. "Told you," he said, "the stuff they made just for us still works." 11. When I came to, my hands and feet were locked in cuffs. In a cozy room, sitting by my bed was a man with chestnut curls. Tall and elegant, sharp-featured yet breathtakingly handsome. His every move carried effortless charm. Benjamin was reading a fairy tale book, The Rose Prince, a tale about a rose from the wild that fell for a prince, slashing through others with thorns to keep him all to herself, forever trapped in love. I scanned the room. In the scarcity of Summer Island, this room felt utterly out of place. European elegance with lavish, expensive ornaments everywhere. It looked like it belonged in a cage for canaries. At that moment, my eyes landed on Benjamin, flickering with a hint of mockery. My gaze fell on Benjamin, carrying a hint of mockery. "That's the only trick you've got." Yeah, I remembered now. His real name wasn't Benjamin. It was Ira Fisher. the one from the Faye family lab, who'd once stared at me through glass like I was some rare specimen. Ira Fisher smiled gently and reached out to brush the messy hair from my forehead. "Sweetheart, you finally remembered me." His gaze held that feverish intensity, like he'd been waiting forever. "The moment I saw you at the Faye family lab, I fell for you completely. You sat there so still, like a stunning piece of blown glass. I couldn't look away. I've seen countless Omegas, but you were the only one worth keeping." He pressed a delicate kiss to my lips. "Stay with me, darling. I'll give you everything I own." Then he stood, his tailored suit clinging tightly to his long frame, elegant, but hiding something deadly beneath the surface, coiled like a snake tasting the air. If anyone dared take his prey away, he'd drag the whole world down with him, no hesitation, no mercy. I turned my nose up at him, disgusted, but Ira Fisher left with a bright smile. He didn't give a damn about my opinion. That man, renowned across high society for his effortless elegance, was pure madness beneath the surface. I'd heard he was twisted inside, dark and paranoid by nature. His love didn't nurture, it destroyed. Anyone he locked eyes on ended up shattered. And now, who knew when he'd set his sights on me? After he left, I sat curled in the blankets, staring blankly ahead with cold eyes. 12. The night I was locked up by Ira Fisher, I had a dream. I relived every single moment from my past 18 years. Every morning, waking up in a cold metal pod, gulping down nutrient slurry, scanned by soulless machines. At 9 of the clock, researchers came to inject us with fresh doses. They were careful, never nicked our delicate skin. But the drugs, they made the pain tenfold for Omegas. Just waiting through the agony, itching, aching, it was just step one. What crushed me most? The mirror afterward. The moment when Omegas saw what they'd become in the glass. The drugs gave them cat ears, tails, or turned them into mermaid-like creatures. And their personalities changed too, sweet, clingy, all softness and flirtation. After waking up like that, so many Omegas just gave up, took their own lives. The ones who survived, those who adapted, they passed the tests, then shipped off to noble families to become breeders. That's the real reason behind the Empire's generation's long shortage of Omegas. Every Omega gets flagged during childhood checkups, then quietly taken to a centralized facility. There, they spend their first half-life locked away. All of their bodily resources belong to the lab. Any Omega who tries to escape faces severe punishment. Beyond grueling daily training, they're subjected to extra-human experiments. A constant stream of drugs and trials claim many Omegas. And for the very few qualified products, the several families in charge of the laboratory have the allocation quota. That includes the Faye and Fisher families. The Faye family's laboratory had the most complete facilities for training Omegas. I spent 18 years playing the part there, perfecting myself until I became the flawless specimen. Named number 1. The lab's owner loves inviting high society to watch me through glass, like a prized animal in a menagerie. They look at me with satisfaction, smiling, as if I'm just another showpiece. Ira Fisher might have once been among those people. What I never saw coming was that, after escaping, I'd still end up caught by him. But nothing could derail the revenge plan I'd so carefully built. No one. 13. Ira had to deal with filming during the day, but he would come into the room to see me at night. He tilted my chin up, eyeing me like a cat playing with prey. "They're all looking for you, especially William. He's been frantic about it. That little madman Lucas almost turned the island upside down too." He looked at me with a faint smile. "James, you really are quite charming." I just stared back, dead calm. "Is my charm strong enough to make you let me go?" His eyes darkened, then he leaned in, straight for my lips, but I jerked away sharp and hard. Ira Fisher straightened up, a faint smile playing on his lips. He didn't care about my resistance, didn't even flinch. For a man like him, that little push only made it more fun. Just like how he ordered the crew to hand out those fake scent test strips on day 1. Almost blew my cover. He whispered, "James, you can't escape me. Dream on." Watching his back disappear down the hall, I wiped my mouth hard with the heel of my hand. My lips were raw from the friction, bright red now. In the mirror, they looked like ripe berries. I held my gaze in the glass for a long beat, then pressed the button hidden inside my ring. The signal was preset. Once it went off, my contact would move fast, find me instantly. I shouldn't have used her so soon, but if I miss today, all my plans for revenge will come to nothing. An hour later, the door was knocked 3 times. I opened it. Standing there was a small, scarred female beta, 14. I called her Sophia. She's my closest ally and my final line of defense. Back then, when I fled the Fae family lab and went into hiding in the black market, it was her who fed me and kept me alive. Sophia couldn't speak and only communicated through sign language, but that didn't stop us from understanding each other. She's hardworking, brave, and has done things I still can't believe. After we got closer, I once asked her why she helped me escape the Fae family's pursuit back then. She just stayed silent. Later, I found out she'd carried a baby for 10 months and given birth to a precious little Omega girl. But they took her. Sophia signed. They stole her from her. She never even got to see her face. From that day on, she's been homeless, always searching, never stopping. And now it was my turn to fall silent. I asked Sophia how old her child was, and only then did I realize. That year, there was a contamination incident at the lab. Every experimental Omega infant was executed. After I finished speaking, Sophia just shed silent tears. Then she wiped them away and hardened her resolve to seek revenge. Just like mine, I had a twin brother, looked just like me but completely different in personality. If the doctor called me quiet as ice, then he was always blazing sunshine. Through countless cold, silent nights, it was him who kept pushing me forward. He'd grin and say, "Brother, we're gonna make it, we've gotta survive. Only by living do we get a future. Only by living do we get a chance." Yet the one who said those words was gone before I was. When I found him, he was covered in blood, unrecognizable. His glands had been ripped out, eyes gouged, organs taken for experiments. All because his pheromones weren't pure enough. The lab tech said, an Omega with only 10% pheromone concentration is useless. Then they took him away, on the pretext of testing, and tortured him to death. The last thing I saw was his lifeless stare. Nothing like the vibrant, cheerful boy he used to be. He looked like a broken doll, hollowed out. Later, I met Sophia. It took us 3 years of grinding work to finally craft this reckless revenge plan. The entire island is now my revenge. 15. I moved through the dense woods of Summer Isle like a shadow. The island had been hailed as paradise on Earth ever since it was discovered 10 years ago. I have no idea when the Fisher family built their villa here, but Sophia and I came here to make arrangements 3 years ago. Took us 3 years to set everything in motion. 3 years of cutting out glands, chopping off my hair, grinding through workouts and reshaping my body, just for revenge. And now, as I walked through the thick jungle, cold settled in my chest like a blade. Today was day 13 of the audition show. Halfway through the schedule, yet one contestant had vanished. The production crew didn't even bother looking for them. They stayed silent, which meant Fisher had already cleaned up every loose end. The production team didn't even bother to search. Instead, they stayed silent, which showed that Fisher had already arranged everything. Sophia and I reached the heart of the forest. Sophia and I made our way to the heart of the dense forest. We met up here, then slipped into the secret place. I released the Omega pheromone I'd extracted years ago. It came in a tiny vial, compressed and potent. The purity was insane. My pheromone levels were already off the charts to begin with. Back in the lab, I'd been the first subject they focused on because of it. Back then in the lab, I was the primary focus. The doctor said my pheromones were nearly 99% pure, enough to draw every alpha in. Unlike my dead brother, who barely registered at all. But 3 years ago, during the surgery, they extracted every last drop from my glands. Pure, concentrated pheromones, unmatched in potency, enough to drive every alpha on Summer Isle into madness, tearing each other apart until they were dead. That's the most effective revenge I could think of. The cameras rigged for the audition show will broadcast it all live. Every humiliating moment. Once the internet erupts in outrage, my preset Control Omega protocol, the sun's reveal, will hit the front page of Starnet instantly. The scandal blows wide open. The families behind the lab will be dragged into public shame. After all, no one can live forever in a lie. And me, the key player in every single move. I would board the pre-prepared escape pod, dive into the deep sea, and leave this tainted land with Sophia's help. That's my entire plan. Tight-knit chain of events, meticulously planned. Should have gone perfectly. But I never saw it coming. Someone actually broke free from instinctive desire. This was all my PL. 16. Deep in the jungle, I coldly unscrewed the pheromone vial's cap. The purest, most intense pheromones flooded out instantly, sent a ripple through every alpha on the island, jolting them into alertness. At first they held steady, but then the scent overwhelmed them, mind and instinct snapping under its pull. Alphas surged toward the source like wolves chasing a flare in the dark. I left the pheromone bottle where it was and walked away from Sophia. To my surprise, I ran into Lucas not far away. He looked like he'd been hunting through the undergrowth for hours, the white fabric of his shirt torn and ragged from branches. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Still, he fought to keep his breathing even, his body taut with desire. Lucas asked in a hoarse voice, "James, where have you been?" He was half kneeling, face flushed, veins standing out on his temples, stabbing a knife into his palm to stay sharp enough to speak. I wasn't the gentle, soft one from before, just cold. Watching him, "Lucas, I lied to you. I'm neither an alpha nor an omega. I'm a beta, broken, damaged." I glanced at my watch, felt the ground tremble as alphas closed in, and smiled. "You asked where I went, so here's the truth. Benjamin held me captive. There's gonna be a fight soon. Find cover, get out of the way. Sorry it dragged you in, but this is my revenge." I stared at him, voice stone cold. "All the alphas on this island? They're all dead." Lucas's breath hitched, his molten gold eyes flickering with a shift in light. He clenched his fist, blood pouring from the palm of his hand. "I'll help you," he said, but I couldn't believe him. Those days on the island had been brief and simple, like two sparks that flared and vanished in an instant. I didn't think he'd betray his nature, or the Empire's honor he'd always sworn by. How could I risk everything on a fragile piece of honesty? But Lucas spoke each word with steady determination. His golden irises burned with fury, yet his canines bit hard into his lip until it bled raw. He stared at me, trembling all over, but still afraid he might scare me. "I'll help you run." I took a step back and smiled at him. "Lucas, if I had met you 3 years ago, I would have gone with you, but now, it's already been 3 years. 3 years of pain had worn me down. The ache for my brother had crushed me. I'd cursed myself again and again. Why was I an omega? Alphas were born with strength, honor. Their future glittered with glory. Ours, just endless meekness and affection. We're stripped of our claws, broken on the bones of pride, taught how to serve, how to please alphas, how to become perfect wives. But no one ever taught us how to be a person, a real, breathing human being with dignity." My gaze flickered over a smirk. "Enjoying the show? 29 alphas chasing 1 omega, like wolves closing in on prey, savoring their panic and despair. That's your nature, right? Too bad I'm just an ordinary beta. All your hopes just crumbled to nothing." I turned and walked away, not sparing a glance at the one still sprawled on the ground. Alphas sinking into beasthood should die by it. "Wait!" Lucas's faint voice came through. With his last strength, he hurled something toward me ahead. It was a compact light blade, replica of an ancient Tang sword. He said, "If that's how it is, take this." I paused, then bent down and picked up the flashlight-sized blade. Without another word, I kept walking into the distance. 17. When Sophia and I reached the seaside, we heard a deafening roar coming from the heart of the dense forest. Birds took flight from the treetops in panic. Those alpha elites, once so proud, draped in polished arrogance, were now clawing at each other like beasts, utterly abandoning any pretense of civility. The rawest, fiercest, and most pathetic way to claim a mate. Pure, brutal battle. Whoever wins takes the prize. But in the end, all they chased was an empty dream. But when Sophia and I reached the spot where the life pods were supposed to be, only to find it completely empty, my heart sank. We locked eyes for a second. Sophia made a gesture. "I checked yesterday, it was still there." I curved my lips into a smile, the coldness in my eyes clear. "It's Ira Fisher." I turned and headed the other way. "There's a small lab here belonging to the Fey family. The Fey family has a small lab here." Sophia nodded and fell in step behind me. Sophia nodded and followed me. Branches brushed against my face, dragging me back to something much older. Once, someone had pulled me out of the main lab and brought me here, to this Summer Island's hidden lab, where I'd stayed for a single season. He told me, "We're building paradise. For every alpha." That meant flooding the whole island with omegas, then setting 10 alphas loose to chase them. Just for fun, like a game across the entire estate. Then something went wrong. The plan stalled. But a year later, Summer Pursuit came out of nowhere. That's when I knew this island was never meant for omegas. It was built as an alpha playground. So I'll burn it down. Let their filthy blood wash over the sand. Purify this so-called paradise. So I'm gonna cleanse this island with blood. Let the filthy blood of alphas purify this beautiful island. Leave a warning that'll freeze the empire to its core. I identified the genetic key in the hidden lab. In my memory, there was a submarine right at the center of the lab. When I stepped inside, sure enough, it was still intact. But the power core wasn't in the sub. The core's what powers every machine. It's lifeblood. Without it, everything else is just junk. I narrowed my eyes and pushed into the locked-down lab. Suspended in a towering vial was the glowing power core. But to reach it, you had to navigate deadly traps, endure twisted agony, then swim through raw biofluid. I stepped up to the first barrier, let the beams tear across my skin. Bones and muscles screamed as if being torn apart. Didn't care. Not a bit. My body had already been through worse, hundreds of experiments, endless pain. The rays might hurt me later, but right now, I wasn't afraid. Then someone lunged from the shadows. He stepped in front of me, took off his protective suit and wrapped it around me, gritting his teeth as he shouted. "James," he whispered, "James, why didn't you dodge?" I looked up, my gaze skimming his anxious eyes and trembling lips. The air had been raised like a delicate flower. Never seen anything like this. His face turned ghost white, limbs frozen in shock, but he stood firm, shielding me with his body. He shoved me hard out of the ray's reach, jaw clenched tight. "Stay still. I'll get it for you." I stood outside the circle, arms crossed, watching him struggle on hands and knees to retrieve my key. Invisible blades sliced through his skin. The blood trailed like sparks in the air. I stared at him. Then something tugged at memory. From long ago, back then, someone had looked at me just like this, studying every move I made. He wasn't William, but he was someone very close to him. He was the eldest son of the Faye family. That madman, cold, wired, indifferent to everything else, lost only in his experiments. Countless omegas had been pushed to death's door by him. He never even blinked. Took me years to chip away at his walls. And finally cracked one tiny crack. He said, "I have a younger brother, same age as you." When he spoke of William, his face was filled with a tender and doting smile. I crouched there, stunned at his feet, listening to him talk about another alpha's perfect life. Born into privilege, parents who adored him, looks that turned heads, strength above all others. Loved playing violin as a kid, then racing cars and chasing danger when he grew up. No matter what mistakes he made, he always had his father and older brother to catch him. I'll admit it, when I heard that, my chest ached with envy. I was jealous of William. We were pulled from the slums at birth and dumped straight into the lab. Never held in a father's arms, never soothed by a mother's lullaby. Our lives were mapped out before we even drew breath, meant only to be someone else's forbidden treasure, just another pawn in someone else's game. In that cold, sterile lab, I used to envy the bright-eyed boy's life, so full of light, so unbroken, until I ran into him again on Summer Isle. He was exactly as I'd imagined. Foolish, dangerously inviting, but the sheltered life had also given him something rare. A raw, unguarded honesty most people never get. Even after everything I put him through, not one flicker of anger crossed his face. Just like now, William burst out of the water, his pale face marked by small scrapes, but his eyes shone brightly like stars. He raised the key and grinned at me. "James, I got it, I took the keys from him, then, as he was pulling himself up, I kicked him hard in the chest. "Sebastian, you bastard." William just stared, stunned, before crashing back into the water. Still dazed, still silent, I wiped a tear from my eye and walked off with the keys. Long after, I heard his voice, faint, barely there, behind me. "I'm not Sebastian, that's my brother. My name's William. I didn't answer, just walked away. Once the sub got power, could compress. Folded down to the size of a dewdrop, I tucked the energy core close against my skin. Sophia and I made our way to the seaside. The sea, which had been calm just moments before, now churned with wind, stinging our eyes. A figure stood there, covered in blood. Tall and broad-shouldered, he narrowed his eyes, radiating an oppressive presence. Ira Fisher took a drag from his cigar as the thin smoke drifted across his striking features. Sweetheart, did anyone tell you? This show's got the Eye involved? The Eye, the Empire's ultimate surveillance machine. Inside its reach, nothing stays hidden. I didn't expect Ira Fisher to have brought the items from the battlefield here. And for what? Just to trap me? Kinda laughable, really. I gave him a smirk. Fisher, with so many alphas down, does that mean you won? Ira Fisher gave a slight nod. Everyone wanted you, sweetheart. Had to take care of them all. A flicker of spite flashed in his eyes. Just 2 little bugs are missing. I grinned as I stepped closer to him. He swiftly drew the tang sword Lucas had given him and swung it at him. My strike was fast and precise, aiming straight for the wound in his fight, adding a few more fatal cuts. Fisher, the sky I won't tell you that a defeated alpha is nothing. It won't tell you either that even if you were once an omega, you can still be beaten by one. Finished speaking, I sheathed my blade and released the submarine. I pulled Sophia along and walked up. Last of all, I glanced back one more time at this beautiful little island. Summer chases, chasing a helpless omega in the summer heat. Too bad their dreams never came true. Bonus scene. Summer chase became a bloody legend in Imperial history. From then on, nobody spoke of that island without shaking their heads. Later, secret labs around the world were broken into one by one. Dozens of omegas escaped from inside, their faces blank and hollow, like they'd been through hell. When the Empire's infamous Omega control case went to trial in the Great Court, the crowd outside was furious. When the renowned Omega control case of the Empire was being tried in the Grand Court, the area outside the door was packed with enraged crowds. They shouted at the top of their lungs. Besides Omegas, didn't the noble families control so much more? Are we even really alive, or just pawns in someone else's game? The storm was building quietly beneath the surface. Over the following centuries, power shifted and changed hands. A new, fairer federation rose to replace the old, rotten empire. As for where it all began, only one name ever surfaced, whispered by Federation Marshal Lucas and Prime Minister William James. But even that turned out to be a fake, just another mask. The legendary Beta, fatherless, nameless, born from nothing. No one knows where he came from, only the wind remembers. Yet his shadow lingers in hearts across generations. I heard that story standing on another island, far away. The place was full of different omegas. Sophia was helping them rebuild, piece by piece, back into the world. I watched the sun sink below the horizon and smiled. The future, it's ours now. The past has drowned beneath waves. Tomorrow, light as a breeze, coming fast.